I think at its core, the direction that we went with Destiny 2 initially, you saw it, that I think it landed really well initially, and then about 6 weeks in, people ran out of things to do, people started to kind of fall off the game. And so a lot of it was going back to that, like, what's the thing that players want from a hobby perspective? A lot of this came out in Forsaken, and we're kind of continuing down that path with Shadowkeep. But it was shifting back to the like long-term investment, the heavier customization, like letting players really like get in really deep with their characters and with how they want to play the game.
Historically, Bungie's been a studio that makes excellent campaigns, right? And like an important part of an MMO is a ritual game that's very replayable. And so how do you respect like the epic feeling of a well-crafted campaign with the micro stories and the MMO elements of an MMORPG? And so I think that's definitely been a journey for us that we went in one direction on for D2, and we've been working our way back now. And so I think Shadowkeep is really just, we got a lot of really positive reception to a lot of those changes that we made in Forsaken. And with Shadowkeep, we're doubling down on a lot of those things. And we're pretty confident that's the direction that players want us to take the game.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, I keep using the phrase evolving world because it's something that's actually really core to, like, we talk about it on the development floor all the time. So a lot of it is about kind of how the game's changing season over season, but certainly we want to make sure that within the seasons, there are those moments that make you say, like, no, right now, like, I want to come do the thing. So if you look at things like the Whisper of the Worm or 0 Hour, like, there's a bunch of stuff we've been trying to do even over the last couple of years, and we'll continue into Shadowkeep, of having those moments where players discover something and like want to log in to see it, like when it's happening. Or we have our seasonal events that are like relatively short relative to the season, and making sure that those moments are there beyond just the seasons changing over time.
I think flowing more naturally is definitely a goal, right? Like, I don't think I can promise that like every single thread will be tied off, but it definitely has been a goal of the team to interact from season to season and make it so that seasons feel less like hey, here's an episode, like a filler episode in the show of Destiny, and more building on something greater. It definitely is in the plan for seasons moving forward that the game, when you log in on day one, is definitely a different game when the season ends. And I think that there will be points during the season when something happens, and even if there is a persistent activity that is still available after that thing happens, the people that were there when it went live will be a memory that they will keep, that will feel special.
We've left a lot of threads hanging. At a high level, it's a couple of things. It's making sure that we have a clear kind of vision of what the next couple of releases, the next couple of years for Destiny are going to look like, so that as we're planning out each of the releases at a high level, we know exactly where we're going, or we know like what the shape and the form are going to be. And that way the decisions that we're making now can line up with the decisions that we're going to make in the future.
I think what we're trying to do now is, instead of just being a new, different siloed project team that spins up every time, we have more consistent teams that flow from one release to another. Yeah. So the same people that worked on one story are actually collaborating on the next one.
We do have a roadmap for the next couple of years in terms of, like, at a high level, kind of what's the 1 to 2 sentence description for the major things that are happening. Things change over time as the games and releases come out. We'll actually see what's working and not working, and so that'll change. But there's a plan, right, for where we think we're going to go right now.
I think we did a good job in Forsaken of getting to a place where we were building out our golf bags, and I think with our new systems, it's more about like, I'm building the things that go into my golf bag to use, and so that's something that I think is really good.
The reason I think the new systems are going to be successful in Shadowkeep is we're really leaning into the things that our core players want. So whenever we think about Destiny and the direction that we're headed, right, there's 3 big things that we talk about. There's the single evolving world, there's the ability to play with your friends no matter where they are, right, with cross-save coming online, things like Stadia. And then we also want to be the definitive action MMO in the space, and so we've kind of shied away from the word MMO for a long time, and we're leaning into that and like embracing it and accepting it. And so I think a lot of the stuff that we're introducing, like in terms of Armor 2.0 and things like the Season Pass, Season Artifact, are the type of systems that players are really going to get into and be able to like grind and invest in and feel like they're progressing their character and they're able to build the character the way they want.
I think your ability to like tailor a piece of gear to be even more specific to a certain situation will be there like it's never been before, right? And I think in the previous game, it was more about like getting that one drop that fit that space for you. Where now I think you'll get a drop that will fit a particular space with you, and then you'll have the ability to take it a lot more further down a path that you want. from a systems standpoint, finishing moves actually have a pretty big impact on the game. When you can strategically finish an enemy that you've weakened, being able to like execute on different strategies in that way, actually like, that's actually very surprising to me as a player. I was like, whoa, this is actually important. Like it changes the way you approach harder encounters, and with things like PED, it just adds a whole nother layer of strategy.
I think for me, one of the things that's most interesting is the way that the new systems interact with stuff like the strike difficulty. And the way that like we had playtests, right, where you go in and you're actually talking to your fire team beforehand about, okay, you're going to have these mods because you're going to deal with these enemies, and I'm going to take these other mods, so whenever these enemies come up, like I can handle them. And then in the middle of playing, you're like yelling at each other, like across the room for people to come over and like, hey, you've got to deal with this guy so I can take care of them, because otherwise we're totally going to wipe right now. That's the stuff that's been really cool to me, is seeing the like interaction of the systems.